So, dear friends, hype it up in the chat. Health Skill Podcast coming at you. My name is Marcel, and we are leveling up your health. And welcome. This is the Meditation November you're watching. This is a series, like we have 4 podcasts. Today, I'm very, very excited to introduce to you Your Cup of Yoga, aka Monica. She's from England. She does a lot of yoga and meditation, and she reads the Bhagavad Gita on stream and of course reflects about it. It's one of the most famous, it's the most famous Hindu text there is. And yeah, I'm excited to have Your Cup of Yoga here today. How are you doing, Monica?
I'm very well. Hello. I'm very well and very excited and really honored to share this with you. I was saying this to you before, I think it's an awesome topic, and given the challenging times we're all going through, I think to educate and contribute to the education of people in terms of meditation, it's bang on.
Cool.
One slight correction, if I may. I'm not originally from England. I stream from England and I live in England. I'm originally from Romania, but that's all. I'm still working for my citizenship, so yeah.
Okay, I see.
I'm very excited to be here.
Okay. Yep. Okay. We have a little centering practice coming up right here, right now, so we can tune in a little bit now, more of what's coming up. So I invite everybody, also the people in the chat, to close your eyes, find a great sit, make it comfortable for yourself, and root your feet down into the ground, sit up tall, and start to feel your breath. Feel your body right here, right now. Breathing in deep into the belly and into the chest. And then bring the attention to not just your body, but also the other bodies right now that we're communicating with. Everybody in the chat and everybody our opposite, so Monica and me, of course, connecting with each other. And when you're ready, open your eyes again and come back. So, I'm excited.
How beautiful.
Dear Monica, can you tell us a little bit about your journey into yoga and meditation before we really get down into the questions?
Yeah. Well, I've started practicing yoga as a physical activity type thing, more realistically, more out of curiosity. When I was at uni in Worcester, one of the lecturers, I've heard that she was doing yoga, and I was really looking up to her. And I've heard of yoga, but I wasn't educated enough in it. So I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. But because I had no idea, no clue what it was, I said, I'm not going to go to a class because I don't want to make a fool of myself. And so I started practicing at home. I've actually started doing on my own with Yoga with Adrienne, who probably many people have heard. So she's kind of my YouTube icon when it comes to practicing yoga. And from there, I've started practicing more and more, just as a physical activity kind of task. And but I got really attracted by the books. So the first book that I read was The Tree of Yoga by Iyengar. And the second I started reading a book, one led to another. And you know how it is. You read one book and you find another title within that book, and so on. You continue the discovery. But everything was not rosy. And from a mental health perspective, I wasn't very well. And I was kind of suffering from severe anxiety, and I'm pretty sure I was depressed. And I've actually got it diagnosed, but I was just miserable. And after reading more and more, and at the time I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, it really opened my eyes. And so I really delved into this spiritual practice, and I was meditating more and more. And eventually I couldn't bear it anymore. And I had kind of a conversation with myself. I like to say I kind of gave myself a slap on the face, and just to wake myself up from that depression. And something flipped, something switched, because nothing was the same afterwards. And from that, of course, the story goes much more longer, but just long story short, I've delved into Bhagavad Gita even more. So I read it the second time. The more I read it, the more I learned how I can improve my life from a spiritual perspective and from a mental health perspective and physical. And after that, the other kind of pivotal kind of person, I would say, was when I found out about Ramdas. So Baba Ramdas was a huge influence in my spiritual practice. So I've found out about him from a song, actually, weirdly, and started listening, and everything that he was saying, it really made a lot of sense, because he was a scientist at heart. It made a lot of sense. And one thing led to another, and now yoga, I try to integrate it in my life, the way I speak, well, I try anything, my meditation, the way I interact with people, and the way I like to serve. And that's kind of the short of it.
Cool. Amazing. Thank you for sharing. I have a little question. Did you speak to others about Bhagavad Gita, or did you just reflect on yourself all the time, like without reaching out to other teachers? Maybe. I just wonder. I'm curious.
Yeah. No, well, at first I didn't have anybody to talk to about the Gita, because I didn't understand its significance. So this is an ancient book. It was written in the 6th century before Christ. And like you said, it's pretty much the Bible for the Hindu communities. And so at first I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I was kind of trying to talk to my partner and some family members, but they hadn't even read it. So it was very difficult. And later on, after I've done my yoga teacher training, I was looking for places where I could volunteer, because as a young yoga teacher, you know this, you try to volunteer to increase your experience and so on. So I was trying to speak to different yoga studios, and eventually I rang a place called Dhruv Yoga, and I rang them. And I rang them because I saw that they were doing this retreat on the Bhagavad Gita, and immediately that drew my attention.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
The beauty of that is the person that spoke to me on that day, they were so open-hearted, so much so that she is now my mentor. Cool. And so they're so focused on the Gita, and I am so grateful and honored, and I'm part of their satsang. So I take part in different rituals and ceremonies with them twice a week. So I'm very, very close and connected with them and influenced by them. Yeah. So it was beautiful. And the lovely thing is that it's the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, that led me there. And it was the Gita that led me to Ramdas, because he speaks about the Bhagavad Gita all the time. So I think that's the commonality.
Okay.
If you hear any noises, just if you hear any noises, they're from outside. It's it's the 5th of November was yesterday, and people still have fireworks, and they're celebrating.
Okay, we see. So let's go on. Let's go on a little bit. Let's come to the questions. The first question is rather a short one. Is meditation difficult?
Depends how you see it.
Yeah.
Depends
how do you see it?
When I first started meditating, I found it very hard.
Yeah.
Meditation is a place where you come to a rather still point, and you're confronted with your mind And so it can be very scary at first. But that's the beginning. Once you get used to it, you seek it because you know it will really soothe your heart.
Yeah.
But at first, it might seem scary. So one piece of advice, if I may, for anybody looking into this, don't be scared, because that's just the mind. The mind, it's a wonderful thing, but sometimes it can go against us. And so therefore it can give us the perception that it's difficult.
Yeah. So you're saying don't be scared, and we're connecting to that right now. There's one question that I'm really down to the heart interested in, and this is this one that's coming up. Is meditation dangerous? And I really would like to maybe let you speak a little bit for a moment, if you can.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant question, because it can be. If it depends, it would depend a lot of the type of meditation, and especially, it will depend a lot of what type of meditation you're looking into, because there are so many. If you try to integrate, for example, a powerful meditation with a powerful Kundalini practice, for instance, and it's really strong, and you're not prepared, and you're not doing that kind of under any form of guidance, it can be it can be a bit, I don't know, challenging, or I don't know if dangerous is the word. You might have a headache, you know. I know for a fact there are some practices where if you're not prepared and they're strong, they're powerful, they can give you a headache, so you should be careful with those, and don't start straight away with the really tough stuff. So start gentle.
So what is powerful meditation on one hand, and what is gentle meditation for you?
Yeah, so gentle meditation, I think, is perhaps when you just follow your breath. I think it's very, how should I put it, subjective, depending on the experience. From my perspective, I find gentle meditation just sitting with my breath, but it often depends on the day, because if in a specific day I will be confronted with a million of thoughts and I have to sit there following my breath, it's going to be very hard. But in another day, if I feel very connected with the universe and I come back to my breath, it's much more easier. A more powerful practice, perhaps, it will be when you try to integrate a specific pranayama, so a breathing exercise within the meditation, and then straight after, perhaps you integrate a certain mantra, which perhaps you use a very powerful one, and that's a powerful meditation. And at this point, I have to admit, I like the more powerful one, but I appreciate the gentle ones as well. It's beauty in all of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. Let's go in a little bit deeper in towards like, let's say we speak about time. Let's just say you're sitting with your breath, and let's speak about time. What do you think would be like a good time for beginners?
If you've never done meditation before and you're struggling with time, you want to integrate this, do you know what? Even 5 minutes will make a difference. Any little help, every little helps, really. If you're working and you take for yourself 5 minutes in between tasks, you will notice the difference within yourself afterwards. And then if you increase that incrementally, so from 5 minutes, you move to 10, to 15, perhaps 20, which is 20 minutes is kind of the recommended dose, for a better phrase, of kind of minimal meditation, so that one can really see and sense the effects. But up until you get there, even 5 minutes, if you do that, it matters, because it will have a long-term effect. as long as you do, you keep coming back to your practice. You keep coming back.
Okay. Thank you for answering that question. What is your definition of meditation?
My definition of meditation? Yeah. I would say be with what is and come back to your breath. Just be with what is and come back to your breath. Just let go. And you can do that while eating. You can do that while having a conversation. You can do that while walking, And in that way, you can even be in a constant meditation at a point. It's a long journey there.
Awesome. That's exactly, that's... When do you know that you experience meditation? So kind of like reflect upon yourself. Oh, wow. Did I experience meditation right now? Or was that something else?
I think it goes, again, it goes back to the day you're having. Because I'm kind of against labeling stuff.
Yeah.
But in today's society, we have to. There was a time where I was labeling even more than I do today. I mean, much more than I do today nowadays. And I would, for me back then, when I first started, for me it would be, okay, I'm going to go and meditate. So for me, it was just sitting down and allocate myself. That was, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes back then. And I said, that's it. I did my meditation. And perhaps sometimes I still do that. But now I also feel I'm meditating when I allocate myself a minute before my food, and have that relationship. I feel I'm meditating just before getting out of bed, when I give myself that 2 minutes before I get out of bed in the morning, But then also sitting down and really giving myself the time and space to focus on my breath or on my mantra or whatever sort of meditation I'm doing. So I think, it's a bit of everything, really. You can experience meditation in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. What do you think about having goals in meditation?
I think eventually the ultimate goal of meditation, I think we should all have this goal, is to be free. That's the whole point, isn't it? That's why we're doing the practice in the first place. That's why we go through yoga. That's why we try to apply yoga. That's why we meditate. That's why we pranayama and so on, to eventually be free. Okay. So I think that's kind of the ultimate goal. But also, there are specific types of meditations that you can have where perhaps you want to attract something in your life, some goodness. Yeah. So perhaps a bit more love, or perhaps a bit, I don't know, more clarity. Asking questions within your meditation, it's such a beautiful thing to do. So I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a bit dangerous at first to give yourself a goal in time. And I talk from experience. When I first started meditation, I was thinking, I need to meditate for at least 15 minutes, and you have that mind at the beginning where you think, no, it has to be that time, but you're more focused on hitting the clock rather than being with the breath, and that it's counterintuitive. And so I think healthy goals in meditation would be things like being free from attachment, having a clearer mind, having less anxiety and more joy, sensing love for yourself and for those around you, and being closer with the divine in whatever form or shape you feel the divine is. So,
yep.
Yeah.
I like that you spoke about being free of attachment, especially also meanwhile you're talking about goals, right? It's kind of like, oh yeah, be free of attachment, but we have goals. So it's fun.
Absolutely. Well, that's the ultimate desire that eventually even that one. So they say that you should be free from desire, but the ultimate desire has to be the desire for God or the divine, or however you want to call it. Eventually, even that desire has to go, but it's the last one to go. So I think that's what they say anyway.
Yeah. So, might I quickly explain how I see like the view of attachment?
Absolutely.
And then you can kind of like tell if you agree with it or not. So I always look at it like in meditation, we're kind of like also participating like in a school test, if you want to say so. So you can prepare to a school test, you prepared your best, and you don't care about the result because you prepared your best. So you're just doing your best and you don't care about what's coming out of it, right? That's being not attached to the outcome, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're having a goal, right? Then if you're having a goal and you want to get the, oh yeah, I want this big mark, I want this good mark from this test, and you work so hard and you're really, really sad that you don't get there. And that's kind of like a little bit dangerous, in my opinion, that you can be really, really sad after meditation because you don't get what you want, right? And that's being free of attachment for me, at least how I explain it.
That is very wise, and it's a very lovely way to put it. Yeah, I agree. The Bhagavad Gita, of course, going back to it, huge fan. And it actually says very clearly, renounce the fruits of your actions. So imagine your example with the exam, it's spot on. So the idea is that if I study for an exam, I studied, but if I constantly I will have my thinking mind on the mark I'm going to get, I will be less focused on the study, on the actual text or whatever I'm studying for. So therefore, when I get to the exam, I'm not going to know a lot anyway because I was too focused on the goal itself. Whereas had I been more focused on actually digesting the information I'm trying to get and forget about what's going to happen with my mark, I'm going to go to the exam place and I'm going to have all the information in my head. So I think that's a lovely example. That's a really spot on example. Yeah, that's the idea, isn't it? There are things outside of our control, and because about the ego mind, we often are so focused in controlling everything and anything. And so when we don't get what we want, for us, it's kind of shaking up our ego, and that's a problem. Buddha himself was attachment in his second noble truth. He did mention attachment. That's the problem, It's the attachment that's the kind of the root of suffering, and of course ignorance. But those are the things, isn't it? It's our desires.
Wonderful. So let's come to the next question. Who should do meditation?
That's such a simple one. Everyone. Everybody, yeah. I think if everybody meditated, I think the world would be in a very different place now, and we would have more clarity. Surely we would be at different stages, If you had kids meditating at the age of, 10, and elderlies meditating, and everybody meditating, everybody will have their own journey and their own kind of karma, but still, they will have more clarity, We won't take everything so personal, because I think I was talking to someone recently, and I think that's the problem. We take everything so personal. We transform something that might not be a big deal into a huge drama. It's like, oh my God, it's not a big deal, And I do that myself often. I think most people do it. But yeah, everyone. Yeah, let's just do it.
Okay. Let's go on. In your opinion, how should a beginner start to meditate? We have that had already a little bit, but maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah. I think in a very specific way, just perhaps try to find a space that it's perhaps nice and quiet, space that is clean, a space that you can make it of your own. It can be a corner in your room, if you can't have a total different room.
Mm-hmm.
Something that is quiet, and you make that space your own.
Yeah.
And in terms of kind of time, just allocate yourself a bit more time, perhaps, as I said, even 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and just focus on your breath. You can start by listening to a bit of meditation music. Nowadays, there are all sorts of apps that are absolutely amazing. If you don't know where to start, there is huge guidance and advices and free courses. And I think your lovely series is part of that. It's contributing to educate people into learning more about how meditation works.
Definitely.
So start simple.
Yeah.
Don't think that, oh my God, officially I'll be starting to meditate, and don't be busy meditating.
Yep.
Come back to your breath. Come back to your breath.
Super. I'm also linking a little link in the end of this podcast, so you can kind of like see my recommendation where you start at. Where you can start at. Now we go a little bit further. We're going to a little bit more complex substance right now. We're going into duality and non-duality. Do these words say something to you? Or
We live in a very dualistic world. We live in a very separate world, don't we? So that's that's a synonym that I would use for duality, separateness.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem or challenge in today's world.
Can you explain a little bit, like, what does duality mean in terms of maybe the body? Can you do that within your body or not?
So you're thinking, because I was more thinking about the separateness between.
Yeah.
The separateness between, if you think within the body, if I see my body separate from those around us, if I don't see my body as an integral part of my consciousness, that's how I would see duality.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That is it. So consciousness and your body is kind of like split in two. That's exactly it. And we are going now a little bit further. As I ask this question here, is meditation rather connected to masculinity or femininity? And you need to see, like, this question only makes sense if we kind of like agree on, like, there is duality, but kind of we want not to be in duality. We want to be in non-duality. First off, we want to be like, we have the body and the mind connected to each other, and we are one kind of within, right? And this question now only makes sense if somebody is like rather in like duality thoughts, like maybe more into consciousness or more kind of like hold back by the body, if you want to say so. What do you think about that? Is meditation rather connected to the masculinity or to the femininity or to the consciousness or the physical body?
I think depending on your journey, where you are in your journey, I think it can be connected to all of those.
Yeah, exactly.
So, for example, when you first start, you will feel more, perhaps even physical pain when you start in your meditation.
Yeah.
You'll feel contracted by time management. You might feel contracted by physical pain. Your knees might hurt if you haven't done some sort of movement beforehand. But in the same time, you will be faced with your own thoughts, and that's the mind, isn't it? So I see this kind of tug of war between, like you said, the consciousness and the ego mind, I call it. Many people call it the ego mind. So often it's our rational mind. So we will try to perhaps we will have a certain vision or some sort of experience within our meditation, and especially at first, we will either be taken aback by it and we will say to ourselves, oh my God, what a wonderful experience. Or we will say, that was nothing, shove it under the rug and that's the ego mind, you know. And in terms of masculinity and femininity, like, you know this, and I know you've spoken about this in the previous lovely podcasts that you've done. But we all have feminine and masculine energy within us. And so perhaps some people might argue, oh, it's definitely connected with the feminine energy because you have that intuition and you 100% you connect to that. And it's true. But in the same time, you are also faced with the rational mind. You also need the strength within you. So therefore, my answer to you would be all of them, really. That's the whole point. It's a holistic approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, we want to integrate all those elements. We want to come out of separateness into the one, into the source. So that's another goal. There you go.
Yeah, I like that answer. Thank you so much. Let's go on. Let's talk about children or animals. Are they in a natural state of meditation? What do you think?
I think that's a beautiful question, and I never thought of that, so I think it's a brilliant way to put it. Well, if you notice, I think we have so much to learn. Like, for example, from children, we have so much to learn. And we know there are different types of meditation. And one of them is, for example, the practice of mindfulness, which is quite popular nowadays, and it's lovely. So the idea of being present in the moment with your breath and with whatever you have going on. And children also have that beautiful spark, that beginner mind. So from that perspective, I think sometimes they are, because they're very much in the moment. They are, you watch children at the train station, they're fascinated by trains. Perhaps they've seen dozens before, but every single time they're fascinated. Look, Mom, there's a train or a tram, or, there's a dog. Everything is a miracle in their eyes. And I think that's such a powerful way to see the world, something that we grown-ups, we've kind of lost, and it's really sad. And going to animals, I think, again, their presence, we're talking at a different level, of course. So we're not necessarily comparing, but taking, I don't know, cats, for example, and they have a certain energy and they're present with whatever there is. And if they're not in a mood of you petting them, you know this better than me, they'll just walk away. And dogs, for example, they'll be so loyal and joyful. But again, they will be, and they will sense, and they will be. I think one common ground that we all have, even with all the other beings, is that connection with something within. And that's something perhaps we grown-ups, we have to remember.
How important is it to have a meditation teacher?
Oh, beautiful question. I think it's personally, from my experience, it's important. But if you don't have one, it's not the end of the world. If you have somebody to support you in your growth, in your meditation, it's beautiful, and you are blessed, and you should be grateful. But not everybody has that. What most people have nowadays, though, they have access to different resources. So, and I speak from experience because I have my mentor, for example. I have this wonderful satsang that I'm part of, and we connect and so on. And I learn so much from them. But a lot of the practice, I do it on my own. And I think that's crucial. I think we should seek less external teachers. That doesn't mean that we should stop, but seek more that inner teacher.
Yeah.
That often people forget. I think it's a question the same with, if you're comfortable in mentioning the idea of gurus, because there's a huge difference between a teacher and a guru. And there are many people, I myself, back in the days, I was thinking I would love to be able, to go to India and find a guru, the whole story. But I can't say I found somebody kind of in a physical form. That doesn't mean I don't have one. They say everybody has an inner teacher. So we should kind of really look within first. And then if we can get support from people around us to guide us in our meditation journey, that's just bliss, that's perfect.
Okay. Let's go on. What do you think about people that share their own meditation experience? Does it help or does it hinder your spiritual growth?
I think sharing experience with other people, things that you've had in your own meditation practice, I think it's beautiful. There is a bit of a risk, yes. I don't think it hinders anything, but I think perhaps it doesn't help the ego in a sense of, oh my God, if you had that experience, how come I didn't have that experience?
Yeah.
So we're going back to the idea of attachment.
Yeah.
We attach ourselves to the experience, but an experience, it comes and goes. And perhaps you know this yourself. I'm sure that you'll never have the same experience in a meditation twice. You might have a powerful practice once and something externally happened to you, and the next time around, you're going to try and recreate. You think, okay, I'm going to do this again, and I can feel this happen, and you have this scenario in your head, but you have to let go.
Yeah.
Because then something happens, and you don't have the same experience, So I think always it's beautiful to listen to other people's stories, because it kind of paints a picture on the possibility of, okay, that might happen, but it's very important not to be kind of cling to that, to think that will definitely happen to me.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong in this business, It's whatever stuff you have going on, whatever experience you have to go through. You go through them, and you shouldn't judge it. You shouldn't think, that's brilliant. That's not brilliant. No, I think everything happens in your journey exactly as it's supposed to happen, and it's absolutely perfect. There you go. Cheers for that.
Cheers. So good. Next question coming up. What does it mean not to meditate?
I think we all experience that most of the time. I think we all we experience that, when we don't feel that those tools working, when we are in an argument and we are being reactive, when we are not present, with what it is. You're cooking lunch and you don't even realize you're cooking lunch because you're thinking on the next task. I always give this example. I used to do myself. I used to come from work, I come home, I would think of work when I was at home. And then I would go to work, I would be thinking of home, and I would never be present, standard.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, that's how I would define not necessarily meditation. Or even if you try to set up the scene and, I don't know, you'll be thinking of something totally different, and just making plans and just having conversation, and you don't catch yourself, then I think that's also not necessarily meditation. It's effort. It's not necessarily meditation.
Good. Are you similar? Are you familiar with the term to flow or flow state?
Yeah, in a state of flow.
Yeah. Does this resemble some kind of meditation for you? Or what do you think about that? Because you're really focused, right? You're not taking thinking about home when you're at work. When you're at home, you're cooking, and you're really focused on cooking. Does it resemble some quality of meditation to you?
The state of flow I see living in a state of flow, in the dance, they call it a dance. I think often it comes almost like an after effect on the back of your meditation practice, or it can be in the same time with your mindfulness practice. So if you're staying there cooking your lunch, for instance, and you're just there and you have that relationship with food, and you're just grateful for the nourishments that you're just about to get. And you feel everything that happens around you. It's just the right way. That's how I feel the state of flow is. You want to finish a task, but you wouldn't want to finish the task until, I don't know, something else finishes. And that something else finishes exactly spot on when you wanted it to finish, and so on. You can move on to the next. And there are cues around you that guide you where to go. And there's almost like effortless.
Yeah.
It's an effortless living.
Wonderful.
That's how I see that state of flow.
Yeah. I love effortless, to think about effortless. Kind of like when I work or when I do something. Also, when I have this podcast, we should be thinking about being effortless.
Yes. Because otherwise you get burnout, don't you? If we identify ourselves with, they call it the actor, you get burned out, you get anxiety, and you might have a headache, because you identify yourself too much with the model of who you're supposed to be, rather than just enjoy the conversation with a friend.
Sure.
That's it.
Good. Let's go on a little bit, shall we? What did people around you think after you started to practice meditation? Did they see a change in you, or did they support you, or maybe did they judge you? What happened there?
Hopefully some of them are in the chat, so ask them. I think they saw a change because they know firstly, they were incredibly supportive, and my partner was kind of, words are limited to express how supportive he was for me, especially because I wasn't very well myself, and he himself, he has Asperger's syndrome. So yeah, he's on the autistic spectrum, so it's not easy for him. Saying that, he was there for me all along, and the rest of my family, they were there for me, and I think they 100% they saw the transformation. I remember one day I was at one of my old jobs, and I put my resignation on, and there was a colleague of mine, and I kept on talking about yoga to everybody. And back then, had I gotten my teacher training? I think I was just about to get my teacher training, but I was kind of wouldn't stop about yoga. And I just put my resignation. I was talking to this colleague of mine, and she said to me, the past 12 months, I saw in you an incredibly difference. You're a different person. And that was a few years ago. And I can say for a fact that, yeah, everybody, my sisters have told me, it's a huge difference. I'm not the person I was a few years ago. And meditation was only one of the tools that I've used to guide me in this growth. It's not easy, but with time, yoga as a way of life becomes your life. There's no separation. It's not, I'm doing yoga on the mat and that's it. I'm meditating and that's it. It becomes part of who you are. And that's when you can show up in a more authentic way, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, leave that question out of the way.
Is it too hard?
No, it's already answered. So, what are you doing when you don't have any motivation or time for meditation? And what does happen to you? So how does your world look like if you're not meditating?
Would you like me to share from my experience, or just in generally
Yeah,
how I see from my experience?
your experience, your
Yeah.
experience.
I used to have, it's funny you bring up the element of time, because I kept on talking about the relationship with time lately with different friends. And that is highly linked with motivation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And discipline, it's a huge element that has to be put into practice. But then in the same time, acceptance when you're not there.
Mm-hmm.
Acceptance that it's okay, because again, we're going back to that egoistic mind where I have to do it or else.
Yeah.
Or else nothing, be kind to yourself. If you will nurture your heart and mind and even your body much more if you're kind to yourself and you don't push yourself to sit for 20 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on your breath when your mind wanders anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's pointless. So perhaps you'd rather spend some time with a loved one and have that connection. That can also be classed as meditation, or go for a walk. That can
Mm-hmm.
also be meditation, a beautiful meditation. So I think it is discipline, but when you have a bad day, and again, I know what a bad day can look like, um, be very kind to yourself, take a bath, listen to a beautiful piece of music, if you're into the arts, paint, anything that really nurtures your heart. And with time, the right motivation will come to you at the right time.
Cool. Thank you. We're going now into questions. If you guys like to ask something in the chat, please feel free to write. And I see already tsvtinoxx from Germany has written something in the chat, and I like to pick that up, even if there's no how is the sign called? Like question mark there. Really trying to grasp how you can be kind and authentic without allowing yourself desires.
Say that again. So really,
So I'm really trying to grasp how you can be a kind of and authentic without allowing yourself desires. Like he goes back to the
desires.
goes back to the attachment of desires. Yeah.
So being kind to someone without, it depends on the relationship you have with that person, I would say. So for example, let's take a specific example. You want to be kind with somebody, and perhaps you're attracted to them and you want to be genuine, but you don't want to be attached in that way. And that this one might not be the case. It's just one example.
Yeah.
We often move. Well, firstly, it's hard. You do it gradually. But I think one element that has to come into place is to not see that person as an object. When we see another person, going back to my example, if you're attracted to that person, but you want to be kind and authentic to them, if we have desires towards them, that often might come from a place of seeing them as an object. So rather, perhaps try to see what's deeper than that within them. So perhaps you don't want to move things further with them and you want to be friends, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Can you take a step back and see that person, not necessarily just a person, but part of you as a soul? Put it plainly, just see the soul within them. And then allow things to flow naturally. And if something is supposed to emerge out of that, then it will, and so be it. Always be truthful, be kind, and if you struggle sometimes, just be honest. Be honest in a way that doesn't contribute to suffering. That's my humble advice.
Yeah. I think that answers a little bit your question, tsvtinoxx, does it? And next to that, if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask right now. Other than that, we're going to be in the Discord for a little bit afterwards. If you like to have it ask the question more private, we can also do that there. And yeah, excited about that. Good. So we have just a thought here coming up, and we're just reading that. And then if no more questions are coming up, we're kind of like finishing up slowly here, and then we're heading over to the Discord. I think desires come from attachment, whereas being kind and authentic come from pure love, says Roxy's Mindstream Art.
Ah, beautiful. That is awesome. Yes. Yes, desires come from attachment and kindness comes from pure love. Yeah. Yeah. And often the line between the two, because of our mind, it can be quite blurred. Can't it? The mind can be, I always say this, I think the mind is, they say the mind is a beautiful servant, but a terrible master. And but the problem that we allow the mind 9 times out of 10 to allow it to be the master. Hence the idea of control, hence the idea of being attached, hence the idea of taking stuff personally. But actually, if we come back to that place of love, and we're not so afraid of opening up towards others, I think we might end up to see the world in a very different place. And it's not to say that you should always kind of live with a head in the clouds and that's it. No, we need the rational mind. We need it. It's just we need a balance, because at this point it's almost like the ego mind is up to here and the heart is down here. So you just need to bring it up a notch so they're nice and balanced. So that when we have a conversation and somebody says something that might upset us, we don't take it to heart straight away. We take a step back and kind of reflect, and we're not so reactive. That's the problem very often. We take everything to heart and we make such a drama out of everything and anything. And then we go upset, and then we create our own scenarios, and then, oh my God, what did they say? It's the end of the world. And actually, you look back and you think, oh, this was just in my head. None of it is real.
Yeah.
I was doing this exercise, which I absolutely loved. And I tried it with a family member and it worked, where I made her think that she was on a boat in the middle of the storm, all alone. You know, like close your eyes and imagine there's this storm and you're all alone in this boat, and it's the weather, it gets worse and worse and worse. And you're this close to get drowned. And then I said, okay, so open your eyes. And I said, how do you feel? And she said, afraid. I said, where are you? I'm on a boat. She was on our sofa. Where's the boat? So I said, really, are you on a boat? Look around you. You're in your living room. Where's the boat? Just to paint a picture that a lot of the stuff that we create, they're just mind created and they're extrapolated. We should see things more like children, that beginner's mind, and take things as they are, you know, let go of stuff much more quicker.
Hello, can we enjoy things here on Earth in this body without attachment?
Yeah, it's hard, but we can, you know. This whole idea of this whole journey and integrating yoga into our lives and starting on a spiritual practice, meditation, and all sorts. None of this means that we don't have to kind of honor our incarnation. You still have to honor your body, honor your environment, pay your bills, know your neighbors, really factual stuff. And then, but in the same time, like imagine there are layers. So there's one level where you have to pay your bills, you have to take your kids to school, you have to feed your pet, and so on. In the same time, there's another layer way back where it says, don't take everything so seriously, because this isn't the whole game. The universe and the world that we see now, it's merely, and again, I'm not a guru or anything, and I only talk from the studies and the stuff that I've learned, just like probably you, Marcel. But this is what I feel is true. This is not the end, everything that we see around us, it's what they call prakriti, so nature, and that materialistic world. But there's another level. They say that we are all surrounded by all different levels of beings, and the mind, our mind, is fairly limited, because that's why we can't really see, we can't perceive. This is why there are certain kind of stuff out there that allow people to open their mind, and that's a different topic. I'm not going to talk necessarily about that, but there are ways into which you can open your mind more widely, and meditation is a beautiful tool for that, because what meditation does, it allows you to access a subconscious mind. And this is not just wishy-washy. There's a lot of science behind it. If I may, I would like to recommend a book. I think it's in audio form as well. It's called Altered Traits. And it's a team of scientists at Harvard universities that conducted a series of different tests, particularly on loving kindness meditation or metta meditation. But they've also tested people with TM, so transcendental meditation, so different times, and they've compared effects. And there are journals written about it and all sorts. So there's a lot of science. Science is only catching up with the stuff, really.
Yeah.
So I think we should be so much more open into receiving these type of information, and not take stuff so damn serious, take it a bit more lightly, with a light heart.
Wonderful. I think we are ended on that. Take it a little more lightly with an open heart. That's very wonderful. So, dear Monica, dear Your Cup of Yoga, where can people find you in the internet and on Twitch? Can you tell us a little bit for also the listeners that are just listening into the podcast?
Yeah, so you will find me on Twitch. So I stream weekly on Twitch. I stream Wednesdays and Saturdays. I tend to do classes in Hatha Yoga. So I'm a level 3 Hatha Yoga teacher. But I also do sessions where I talk pretty much like today on various topics. Normally that's a Saturday. And I touch subjects like how to integrate, how to apply yoga into your life, how to develop better relationship, how to serve people and help yourself. So various topics. So Twitch is one platform. You'll find me on Facebook at Your Cup of Yoga. And I'm also on Instagram at Your_Cup of Yoga. YouTube will also come up at a point. I don't know, Aaron. At the point.
Wonderful.
But yeah.
So it was my pleasure having you, first of all. And I want to mention again, if you guys need some advice in like meditation or so, please feel free to either message me, come into my Discord, or check out Your Cup of Yoga, message her, and reach out to us if anything is going on that you need help with. Right now, we're heading over to Discord, and we will go and talk there a little bit more. We are finishing this whole thing up. If you like to speak with us, please come in, join my Discord, and we are heading into a chat. Health Skill Podcast presents Meditation November. Next week, we're here with Meditation Minute on Sunday. So if you guys like to join in, we're going for 3 more times for this whole Meditation November. We have beautiful guests. We have my first yoga teacher here. We have my meditation teacher coming on. It's a she. I don't know. It's a woman. I also want to honor that. And Yeah, tune in live at www.moment.yoga/Twitch. We are available on all podcast platforms. Health Skill Podcast. We are leveling up your health skill.